In the fall of 2016, two things happened that really, truly shocked me. First, we had one of the most divisive elections in the history of the United States. And second, I realized that in less than a year, I would turn 21 years old. So I did what legions of Americans have done when they were confused or trying to figure things out. I hit the road. I decided that over the summer of 2017, I wanted to travel across the country and interview 21-year-olds from all over the place about how they were thinking about their own future as well as the future of America. So I managed to get a little bit of funding from my university, borrow a car, and I set out from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles, California. I traveled over 6,000 miles through 24 states, almost all of it by myself. I went everywhere from a carpentry training center outside of Pittsburgh, to a cattle ranch in Alabama, to a church in the middle of Detroit. I spoke with about half women and half men, people working, people in community college, people in four-year colleges, people of different races, ethnicities, religions. But rather than give you a bunch of statistics, I figured I'd tell you how some of the 21-year-olds I spoke with spent their days. Yul Kendi runs a startup out of Massachusetts. Ed wakes up every morning at 3:30 a.m. to fix power lines in Pennsylvania. Caroline is working at a Hallmark store before beginning college in Spring Hills, Tennessee. Emily, I interviewed after she was herding cattle in Aliceville, Alabama. Giera works at a nonprofit in Los Angeles. And Brandon Pollen, age 21, serves as the mayor of Indian Head, Maryland. Even better, while I was at town hall, I got the chance to speak with Tyler, who's interning for the mayor. So before I continue, I have to address the first question that everyone asks me when I tell them about this project, which is something like, how did you find these people? And the short answer is any way I could. But the long answer is I used three main techniques. I went through networks, so talked with friends of friends of friends of friends. I reached out to community leaders, so people like pastors, coaches, student group leaders, anyone who could connect me to lots of 21-year-olds. I also looked at local news articles, community college bulletins, to find people who seemed interesting, and then sent them an email or a message saying, hey, you seem interesting, will you be willing to talk with me? Now, these were open-ended interviews, the conversations said lots of topics, but throughout the course, I made sure to ask people 4 questions about themselves and 4 questions about America. I'm going to go through them right now really quickly. I asked, when you think about your own future, what is the first word that comes to your mind? What is your greatest fear? What is your biggest hope? And what would make a meaningful life for you? I also asked 4 questions about America. These were, when you think about the future of America, what is the first word that comes to your mind? What is going well in America? If you could change one thing about America, what would it be? And what is one thing you wish elected officials knew about your life? So, based on these questions, based on all the amazing people I got the chance to speak with, today I want to share with you 3 discoveries about 21-year-olds in America. So, the first one came out of this question. I asked, when you think about the future of America, what is the first word that comes to your mind? Now, what do you all think people said when I asked them this question? Bleak, scared, what else? Downfall, okay. Anyone else? Hope? Okay, great. Well, a lot of you are right. I got a lot of these words. I heard things like this. Dumpster fire. Destruction. Or one person just said, oh, honey. Now, I got some words like hope, hopeful, and unity, but 21-year-olds were pretty pessimistic about the future of the country. They thought it was random, they thought it was volatile, and they were scared and worried about regression and hatred. I also asked, when you think about your own future, your own personal future, what is the first word that comes to your mind. And I got some of the same answers as before. Things like hopeless, yikes, or even just an expletive, which a lot of us can relate to. But I also heard things like this: optimistic, shiny, and hopeful. And as a group, 21-year-olds were pretty optimistic about their own future. They thought that their determination, their dedication, their ambition would lead them to success and happiness. So this was surprising. 21-year-olds were deeply pessimistic about the future of the country, but pretty optimistic about the future of their own lives. What was going on? It turns out this is an example of what the journalist David Whitman calls the Optimism Gap. We're pretty optimistic about our own lives, about the lives of the people in our immediate surroundings, but once we zoom out far enough, that optimism not only dissolves, but it completely transforms into pessimism. This is curious, this is important, and that was the first discovery I wanted to share with you today, the optimism gap. Let's move on to the second one. Now, we assume that people fear change, and no one fears change more than millennials. Just ask the internet. There are all these articles about why you're afraid of change, how to overcome your fear of change, what surprising revelations there are about why you're so scared of change. But during my interviews, I heard something a little bit different. In fact, I heard the exact opposite. Coco from Ohio said that my biggest fear is that things just keep going on like they are. Josuel from Massachusetts said, there's a fear that you kind of wake up one day and you're older and you look back and things haven't changed that much. I heard the same word over and over again across the country. I want to see things less stagnant. Success is not being stagnant. I would hope to never see people stay stagnant. Now, this is called stagnophobia, or the fear of stagnancy. Now, you might not have heard this word before, and that's probably because I just made it up. But to understand why there's this fear of stagnancy, it's helpful to look back at everything that's happened in the past 21 years. Since the people I interviewed were born, we've had a financial crisis that nearly brought down the global economy, a tied US election, a hacked US election, the death of bin Laden, the rise of ISIS, Brexit, H1N1, SARS, Ebola, Zika, 3 different popes, the discovery of the Higgs boson particle, our first African-American US president, over 20 countries legalizing gay marriage, and a 17-year-old girl winning the Nobel Peace Prize. That's a lot of change. When the 21-year-old I spoke with were born, the following things did not exist. Following things did not exist: iPads, iPhones, Androids, Wikipedia, Kickstarter, Airbnb, Wi-Fi, hybrids, Tesla, Uber, Lyft, SpaceX, genome sequencing, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Netflix. I mean, when we were born, no one had yet invented avocado toast. So it makes sense that stagnancy can be scarier than change. And that was the second discovery I want to share with you: stagnophobia. Let's go to the third. So if you've looked at any news article or read the media about millennials at any point in the last 5 or 10 years, you'll see things like this: the me generation. Millennials are the most narcissistic generation ever. Me, the rise of narcissism in the age of the selfie. Social media has created a generation of self-obsessed narcissists. You would think that all millennials across the country are, self-obsessed, navel-gazing narcissists, obsessed with their social media profiles and hiding away in their safe spaces. But I asked this question: what would make a meaningful life to you? And no matter where I went, I heard the same thing. Actually, the same refrain over and over again. I thought people would say things like wealth, comfort, or I don't know, maybe just happiness. But instead, they said this. Reese from Los Angeles says that his greatest fear is death without leaving a mark on the world. Chase from Pittsburgh says that a meaningful life is leaving a mark on other people's lives. Erin from Detroit says that she wants to make a mark on something before she leaves. For the people I spoke with, making a mark wasn't even really a question. For example, Amorita from Chicago says, if I lost my drive to make a positive contribution, I would be like not a person. I wouldn't need to exist. And that was the third point, the third discovery I wanted to share with you, the strong desire to make a mark. But there's still a lingering question about making a mark. What does that even mean? And it means different things to different people. Some go big. They say they want to inspire and create for others. It's about how many people can I empower. Some say making a mark is making something easier for a group of people, making it more accessible, making it cheaper, making it more sustainable. For some, making a mark is making sure that everyone in their close family is okay. For some, making a mark is just having a couple of really close friends. And people face this tension of how wide is your circle. Madeline from Evanston said something really, really interesting. She said, I was taught and dreamed as a kid to help like 100,000 people. But that's not nearly as important of making the lives of the people who are 5 feet away from me better. And I've dealt with this tension too. When I set out on this journey, I decided to travel 6,000 miles. I probably passed by 100,000 people. And before I left, my one word for the future of the United States was yikes. I was really worried about the country. I wasn't sure it was going to happen. But I spent most of my time actually 5 feet away from people, having conversations with 21-year-olds who were hardworking, excited, and overall pretty optimistic about their own future. And with every conversation, my optimism gap shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. And by the time I finished, my one word for the future of the United States was hopeful. I'm much more optimistic about the future. And that's exciting. And I want all of you to have this experience too. So, because I'm a college student still, I'd like to end with a homework assignment. The Amazing Biff team is going to be handing out cards, small cards about this big, each with a question on them. They're the 8 questions that I asked during my interviews. And my assignment for you is this. Before the weekend is over, by Monday morning, find someone, they don't have to be 21, the only requirement is that they're 5 feet away from you, and ask them one of these questions. Now, it may help close your optimism gap. You may find something interesting. It may go terribly, it may go really well. But if you find something interesting, if you learn something new, please let me know. Send me an email, send me a text. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening.